Before we begin, take a moment. Let the noise of the world fade. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a journey through love, betrayal, courage, and the kind of loyalty that doesn't need words. It's the kind of story that stays with you long after it ends, whispering in the quiet corners of your heart. If stories like that matter to you, stories where even a single bark can change everything, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and stay until the very end. You won't want to miss what unfolds. The late afternoon sun spilled like warm honey across the waters of Willow Ridge Lake, nestled in the foothills of western North Carolina. A cool breeze drifted off the water, rustling the early autumn leaves and making the playground chimes at Lakeside Memorial Park sing a quiet, whimsical tune. The town was small, mostly quiet retirees, some young families, and a slow trickle of military transplants drawn by the promise of peace and pine trees. It was the kind of place where you could hear the whisper of the lake before you saw it. On this particular Saturday, the park was alive with laughter. Children darted between the jungle gym and swings. Parents clustered under shaded pavilions, sipping coffee or lemonade from thermoses. Sitting cross-legged at the edge of the splash pad was a girl with bright eyes the color of storm clouds and a loose braid falling over her shoulder, Lily Carter, 10 years old, small for her age, with a quiet confidence and skin like warm oak. She was one of those children who always seemed halfway between a dream and a question. She didn't talk much these days, not since her mother passed away last spring. Her world had grown quieter, but not entirely silent, not as long as Bear was with her. Bear was a large German shepherd with a silver-black coat and deep amber eyes that looked wiser than most adults. At 3 years old, he had the physique of a disciplined soldier, muscular, alert, lean. He had been trained by Noah Carter, Lily's father, a former Marine, first for home protection, then for companionship. But Bear was more than that. He was Lily's shadow. He knew when she needed space and when she needed weight against her side. His favorite place was lying under the shade near the water's edge, always watching her, always ready. Lily wandered toward the edge of the park, where the playground sloped gently down toward the lake. A narrow, faded wooden fence ran alongside the slope, but in some places the grass had grown so thick it obscured it entirely. Lily liked this corner. It was quieter. The ducks floated lazily here. Bear followed her, his stride steady and ears half back in relaxed attention. Up near the picnic tables, a boy with freckles and too much energy for his own good, Jacob Winslow, age 9, was zipping around unsupervised. Jacob had a wild streak. His mother, always on her phone, rarely looked up. The town knew him as the trouble magnet. Today, he had noticed Bear. And something about the size of the dog or perhaps the calmness in Lily's demeanor irritated him. "You think your dog's a hero," he called out, approaching too quickly. "Bet he can't even fetch." Lily turned, unsure what to say. Jacob didn't wait. He made a sharp whistling noise and darted past Bear toward Lily. Before she could back away, Jacob lunged and shoved her playfully, too hard. Lily stumbled backward, her heel catching the wet edge of the grass, dangerously close to the muddy incline that led straight to the lake. Before anyone could react, Bear moved. With the speed of instinct and training, Bear lunged forward, not with aggression, but with purpose. His teeth latched gently onto Lily's hoodie, pulling her back just in time to stop her from slipping into the shallow, algae-slick edge of the water. Lily gasped, one knee in the dirt, but safe. "Bear," she cried, more surprised than hurt. But that sound, and that movement, taken out of context, was all Officer Travis Keene needed. Keene was tall, broad-shouldered, in his late 30s, with thinning blonde hair and a permanent crease between his brows. He wore the badge like a shield and a warning. A former Army MP dishonorably discharged for excessive force, Keene had found quiet shelter in Willow Ridge's underfunded police force. He rarely smiled, and when he did, it didn't reach his eyes. He had a particular disdain for men like Noah Carter, men who had survived the system that spat him out. Officer Keene had been walking the perimeter of the park that day, as part of a community watch rotation he insisted on. He saw bears leap. He heard Lily's cry. And in his eyes, it was the perfect excuse. Without hesitation, he drew his sidearm. "Get back," he shouted, startling nearby families. Lily turned, her hands raised in instinctive defense. "No, he saved me. He was helping me," she screamed. But the shot rang out before her words finished. Bear yelped, a sound torn from the center of his body, and collapsed beside Lily. The wound bloomed red against his silver coat, staining the grass beneath him. Lily dropped beside him, hands trembling, pressing against the fur, her tears mixing with the blood. "Bear, no, please, he wasn't doing anything wrong." Across the playground, a woman stood frozen. She had been watching from a nearby bench, her takeout coffee forgotten in her hand. Emily Brooks, 35, was a pediatric nurse who had moved to Willow Ridge 2 years prior after a tragic accident claimed her 5-year-old daughter at a lake near Raleigh. Since then, she had lived quietly, kindly, the type of neighbor who brought soup when someone was ill but rarely spoke of her past. Today, something in her stirred. She had seen the entire event unfold. She had heard the boys taunt, seen Bear's calm vigilance, and recognized the look on Officer Keen's face just before he fired, not fear, but satisfaction. Emily's phone had already been recording a video message to her sister. She quickly flipped the camera and caught the final seconds, the gunshot, Lily's scream, and Bear's collapse. In the background, Jacob was crying, confused, while his mother hurried over, asking loudly what had happened. Officer Keen holstered his weapon with practiced indifference, muttering, "The dog was aggressive. I had no choice." Emily's hands trembled as she stopped the recording and tucked the phone into her coat. Lily cradled Bear's head, her voice a whisper no one else could hear. "You saved me. I'm so sorry." The sun dipped lower over Willow Ridge Lake, casting long shadows across the playground. The breeze had died. Even the ducks had gone silent. And in that hush, a dog's final breath rose with the wind and vanished. Noah Carter's truck skidded into the gravel parking lot with a guttural roar, dust curling behind the tires as if the earth itself shared his dread. The sun had just dipped behind the pine-topped hills of Willow Ridge, casting an amber haze over the lakeside park. He slammed the door shut before the engine finished rattling, boots pounding against the dirt as he sprinted toward the crowd forming like a wound around the playground. Noah was a man of presence, tall, lean, with the sort of hard-set jaw and steady gaze that came from years in the field. His dark hair, cropped short, was starting to silver at the temples. The creases at the corners of his eyes weren't from laughter, they were from squinting into the sun on 100 unnamed hillsides overseas. Civilians called him quiet, respectful. But to those who knew his history, Noah was a man you didn't provoke. And nothing provoked him more than hearing his daughter cry. He broke through the ring of onlookers with a glance, eyes scanning until they found Lily, crumpled on the ground, arms curled around Bear's still body. Her face was streaked with tears and dirt, her hoodie soaked in something darker. Noah dropped to his knees beside her. "Lily, baby, are you hurt?" She didn't answer, only shook her head without lifting it. Her body trembled under his hand. And then he saw the blood. And Bear. Lifeless. It hit him in the chest like a second gunshot. From the corner of his eye, movement drew his focus, and there stood Officer Travis Keen, still holstering his sidearm. Noah rose slowly, hands clenched so tight the skin on his knuckles turned white. The uniform was newer, but the man was the same. Noah's mind yanked backward 5 years to a sandstorm base in Kandahar, where Keen had lost control on a night patrol, dragging a terrified civilian teen from his home. It was Noah's report that got him removed from their unit and dishonorably discharged. The charges had been buried, but the scar never healed. Now, Keen smiled. "Carter," he said evenly, voice calm but thinly veiled. "Dog went after the kid. Had to put him down." Noah stared at him, a long, cold stare. "My daughter?" I said the kid, Keene clarified, gesturing vaguely toward Lily without meeting her eyes. A voice cut through the tension like a scalpel. That's not what happened. Emily Brooks stepped forward, a small woman in her mid-30s with clear gray eyes and auburn hair tied into a low bun. She wore dark scrubs under a light cardigan, the tag from Mercy General still clipped to her collar. Her hand trembled slightly as she held up her phone. I have it on video. He wasn't attacking. The dog saved that little girl. Keene turned to her with a dismissive scoff. Ma'am, you're mistaken. You recorded part of the scene. I saw everything, she said firmly. And I'm a nurse. That child was pushed. The dog reacted instinctively, not aggressively. Noah looked from Emily to Keene, the puzzle pieces clicking into place. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a calculated act. And now he was standing in a civilian park with no authority, no badge, and no weapon, just a daughter broken by loss and a memory of a betrayal that had come full circle. Officer Dana Hill, a new face to Noah, stepped in from the side, her notepad out. She was in her late 20s, blonde ponytail, polite but visibly uncertain. We'll need statements, she murmured, eyeing Emily's phone. Ma'am, if you could send me the video. Emily nodded and complied, her eyes never leaving Keene's. Noah knelt beside Lily again, softly brushing hair from her face. Let's go home, sweetheart. She didn't reply. Her eyes were wide, but not vacant. There was something in them, something fragile and frozen. A flicker of fear that hadn't been there before. Bear's collar lay loose in her hands. Later that night, after the drive home in near silence, Noah sat at the edge of Lily's bed. She hadn't spoken since leaving the park. She'd showered in a daze, changed into her pajamas without being told, and crawled beneath the covers with Bear's blanket pulled tight to her chest. He watched her, the room dim except for the soft glow of her nightlight. A tiny planetarium rotated above, casting constellations on the ceiling. It was her mother's last gift, a piece of light to carry her through darkness. Noah rubbed his hands together, raw with guilt. Lily, he said gently, I need you to talk to me. Anything. Please. She turned slightly, her voice a whisper. He didn't even growl. He just saved me. I know, baby. They killed him, she said, and her words weren't angry, they were hollow. Noah's throat tightened. They'll answer for it. But they won't bring him back, she replied, eyes never leaving the stars above. Outside, Noah paced the porch in a borrowed jacket. The air was crisp. The pine trees swayed with secrets. He had made peace with many things over the years, the things he'd done, the friends he'd buried, the orders he couldn't question. But he'd never made peace with injustice. And this wasn't just about Bear. This was about his daughter sleeping in fear in a house that once knew laughter. He pulled out his phone and scrolled to a name he hadn't dialed in years, Mark Delgado, a former JAG officer turned defense attorney, now working in Charlotte. Delgado had always had a soft spot for righteous trouble. The call went straight to voicemail. Noah left a message, it's Noah Carter. Something happened today. I think you'll want to hear this. Inside, Lily lay motionless, one hand curled around Bear's leash. Across town, Emily Brooks sat at her kitchen table, replaying the video over and over. In the corner sat a dusty box of baby clothes she hadn't touched in 2 years. Her daughter, Ava, had drowned in a boating accident at age 5. No one had seen it coming. No one had stopped it. But today, a dog had saved another child from the same fate. And someone had killed him for it. Her jaw set. This time, she would speak up. The morning sun filtered softly through the tall pines that framed the Carter home, casting streaks of golden light across the porch where Noah sat with a half-empty mug of coffee. The cup had long gone cold. His elbows rested on his knees, hands clasped, knuckles still raw. Inside, the house was silent, too silent. Lily hadn't said a word since last night. She hadn't touched breakfast. The only sound she'd made was a quiet whimper in her sleep, clutching Bear's blanket as if it could protect her from a world that had turned on her. Noah's mind, however, was on fire. Names, timelines, reports, memories, all colliding in a storm that had no clear exit. He kept replaying the moment he saw Keen standing over Bear's body, and the expression on the man's face, not regret, not confusion, but satisfaction. He wasn't just a trigger-happy officer. He had meant it. The creak of approaching footsteps drew his attention. A moment later, a figure emerged from the gravel driveway, Emily Brooks, the nurse who had recorded the shooting. She looked different in daylight, more composed, though her face still carried the careful sadness of someone who had learned how to grieve without crumbling. She was wearing a navy utility jacket over jeans, and her auburn hair was pulled back into a loose braid that brushed her shoulder. She carried a manila folder in one hand and a paper coffee tray in the other. "I brought something for the both of you," she said, lifting the tray. "Chamomile for her, black for you. I remembered from the park." Noah took the cups silently, nodding. "She's upstairs." "Not really, talking." "I figured," Emily said gently, sitting beside him without waiting for an invitation. She set the folder in her lap, fingers tracing its edge. They sat in silence for a long moment, listening to the whisper of wind in the trees. Finally, she said, "Her name was Ava." Noah turned to her. "My daughter," Emily explained, voice steady but soft. "She was 5. 2 years ago, we were at a lake upstate. Family weekend. She wandered too close to the edge, and no one noticed in time. By the time we realized she was missing, it was too late." Noah didn't speak. He knew there were no right words for that kind of loss. Emily smiled sadly. "I blamed myself for months. I still do, on some days. But yesterday, when I saw that dog move, when I saw Bear grab Lily's hoodie, I saw what I never got. That instinct. That second chance." Her voice caught, just for a moment. She took a breath, composed again. "What Keen did, it was wrong. It was calculated. He didn't act out of fear. He acted out of something else." Noah looked at her, brow furrowed. "You saw that too?" Emily nodded. "I saw his face. I'm not a cop, but I've worked ERs for 15 years. I know what fear looks like. That wasn't it." He waited until he had an excuse. She reached into the folder and pulled out a set of printed stills, frames from her video, including one just before the shot. Bear's posture was clear, head low, body curved around Lily, not lunging, protecting. Another photo showed Jacob Winslow, the boy who had pushed Lily, frozen in surprise a few feet away. "These came from a friend of mine who does video forensics," Emily explained. "I didn't know who else to trust, so I kept it quiet. But when I looked deeper into Officer Keen..." Noah's gaze sharpened. "You found something?" Emily nodded and handed him a document. "Public records." Before Willow Ridge, he worked in Rockvale County. There were at least 2 internal reviews filed under his name, both involving the use of force against unarmed individuals. No criminal charges were filed, of course. They were swept under departmental discipline. But the pattern is there. Noah scanned the papers, teeth grinding softly. "And no one said anything?" "Small towns," Emily said. "They protect their own. But that doesn't mean we can't fight back." A screen door opened behind them. Lily stood there, pale and silent in an oversized hoodie, Bear's collar still looped around her wrist. She looked at Emily for a long moment, then at the photos on the porch table. "Is that from yesterday?" she asked, her voice small. Emily turned to her, gently. "Yes, sweetheart. I took the video when Bear saved you. I'm trying to help." Lily stepped closer, her hand trembling as she touched the image of Bear. Can it show people he was good? Yes, Emily said, with quiet certainty. It can. Lily gave a slow nod and turned back inside. Noah watched her go, eyes wet with unshed grief. Emily placed a hand over his. I want to testify. I'll take the stand, give my name, do whatever it takes. You do that for us? I'd do it for Bear, she said, then paused. And for Ava. A new voice called from the gravel path. It was Mark Delgado, the defense attorney Noah had called the night before. A short, stocky man in a tan sport coat, Mark walked with a slight limp from a long-heeled combat injury and always wore thick-framed glasses that never quite stayed on the bridge of his nose. His expression was already laced with urgency. Sorry to just walk up, he said, panting slightly from the hill. Noah, we've got a bigger problem. Noah stood. What is it? Mark pulled out his phone and flipped it toward them. This morning, Keene filed an official report claiming Bear lunged. Claims the video is edited. And guess what else, he's petitioning to file charges against Lily, saying she gave conflicting statements about the attack. Noah's eyes narrowed. She's a 10-year-old girl. Mark nodded grimly. Which won't stop them from using it to discredit everything you and Emily say. We're not just dealing with one bad cop. There's something deeper happening here. Emily stood, clutching the folder. Then let's dig deeper. The gray clouds over Willow Ridge had rolled in like silent witnesses by late afternoon, hanging low with the weight of a storm that hadn't yet decided if it would fall. Noah Carter stood under the porch eave of his house, arms crossed, eyes scanning the neighborhood with the cold precision of someone who had once scanned rooftops in foreign cities for snipers. He didn't trust the silence. Silence, in his experience, always hid movement. The security system had been installed the night before, 2 motion-triggered cameras by the front entry, one embedded discreetly near the hallway light fixture inside, and another tucked behind a vent cover in the living room. Noah had spent years planning for ambushes. He knew how to think like a man who wanted to strike first and how to anticipate the man who thought he already had. Lily was spending the afternoon with Angela Pike, a retired schoolteacher who lived 2 houses down. Angela was in her early 70s, a petite woman with silver hair and a voice that somehow always sounded like it was telling a bedtime story. She had taken to Lily as if the girl were her own granddaughter, offering her a safe space to read, draw, or sit quietly by her koi pond. It was the only time since Bear's death that Lily had voluntarily left the house. Noah checked his watch. 3:14 p.m. Right on cue, the rumble of a police-issued Dodge Charger echoed down the street. The car moved slowly, purposefully, as if it wanted to be noticed. Officer Travis Keene stepped out, dressed not in uniform, but in civilian clothes, an olive button-down tucked into jeans, the concealed outline of a sidearm still visible beneath his jacket. He wore mirrored sunglasses, though the sky was dull and sunless. Noah opened the door before Keene could knock. "Come in," he said flatly. Keene smirked. "No handshake. You didn't come for one." The officer stepped inside, his boots making hollow thuds on the hardwood floor. He glanced around, noting the clean lines, the minimalist decor, the faint smell of gun oil. Noah still kept things sharp, ready. Keene's eyes flicked toward the photos on the mantel, Lily with Bear, Lily with her mother. He scoffed. So this is where the war hero hides now. Cozy. Noah shut the door behind him and gestured toward the living room. Let's talk. They sat across from each other, Noah in an armchair, Keene on the edge of the sofa. Neither relaxed. You called this meeting, Keene said, so I assume you're ready to drop this whole circus. Your kid's story is falling apart. You really want to drag her through court? Noah didn't flinch. You shot a dog. A trained support animal. In front of my daughter. Keene shrugged. He was lunging. According to your version. Keene leaned forward, his voice dropping. Noah, let's not pretend this is about the dog. This is about you. You think you can screw with my life and just vanish into this picture-perfect town? I lost everything because of you. Noah's jaw tightened. You lost it because you couldn't control yourself. Keen's smirk cracked, revealing something darker underneath. And now you think I'm going to let you build a case against me? You think some grief-stricken nurse and a shaky video are enough? I've got the department. The mayor. Hell, I've got the union on speed dial. You've got a traumatized kid and a dead dog. Noah's eyes narrowed. So that's what this is. Payback. Keen didn't answer directly. He stood, slowly, walking toward the framed photo of Lily and Bear. He picked it up, studied it, then turned back to Noah. She loved that mutt, didn't she? Noah rose, the movement calm but loaded. Put it down. For a moment, the tension crackled. Then Keen chuckled and set the frame back on the shelf. This is war now, he said. You think you're the only one who knows how to set traps. He turned to leave. Walk out that door, Noah said, and you'll want to remember everything you said in here. Keen paused. Why's that? Noah didn't answer. He didn't have to. As the officer stepped off the porch and returned to his vehicle, Noah closed the door quietly and exhaled. He walked into the back room, opened his laptop, and pulled up the footage from the living room camera. It had caught everything: Keen's smug entrance, the threats, the veiled confession, the venom behind every word. Every angle had been covered. Every sentence, time-stamped. He saved the file to a secure drive, then sent copies to both Mark Delgado and Emily Brooks, who had now agreed to testify as a primary witness. A text pinged from Mark minutes later: "We've got him. Let's talk tomorrow." Another from Emily: "It's worse than we thought. Call me." Noah glanced at the clock. Still 2 hours until Lily came home. He poured himself another cup of coffee, sat down, and stared at the frozen image on the screen, Keen's face, just seconds before he said the words, "This is about you." Outside, the clouds thickened, the wind shifting. The storm was coming. Rain had finally come to Willow Ridge. It fell steady and soft, like a whisper of truth washing through the town. The drop streaked the windows of the public library's side room, blurring the playground across the street like a watercolor in motion. Inside, Emily Brooks sat at a low table, her posture straight but calm, her notepad open, her pen poised in her hand. She wore her usual scrubs under a charcoal gray cardigan, hair damp from the walk through the rain. Across from her sat a group of children, ranging in age from 6 to 11, every one of them had been at the lakeside park the day Bear died. The library's youth coordinator, Becca Marsh, stood nearby, arms gently folded. Becca was in her early 40s, a warm black woman with tightly coiled hair and a honey-smooth voice. She wore floral earrings and sensible shoes, and had an uncanny talent for keeping children calm, even when their world wasn't. She'd worked in Willow Ridge for 15 years and knew every family by name and every child by their scraped knees. "We're not forcing anything," Becca had said earlier that morning. "Just stories. Just what they remember. You ask gently. They talk if they feel safe." Emily nodded, gently flipping to a clean page. "All right, who remembers what happened near the lake?" For a moment, the kids looked at each other uncertainly. Then, a hand rose. It belonged to Sophie Tran, 8 years old, daughter of the town's Vietnamese-American pharmacist and one of Lily's classmates. Sophie was small, with a pageboy haircut and eyes too large for her face. She clutched a crayon drawing of the park in her lap. "I saw him," she said quietly. "The dog. He didn't bite." He pulled her back. She was falling. Emily leaned forward, voice warm. "Can you tell me what you saw? Just the part you remember most." Sophie pointed to her picture, where she had drawn a brown and gray dog tugging on a girl's hoodie with his teeth. Behind them was a figure holding something, long and dark, like a stick. That man yelled. Then there was a bang. Emily's eyes met Becca's briefly. She slid the drawing into her folder without comment. Another boy, Tyler Ward, piped up. He barked once but didn't chase anyone. That cop didn't even ask. He just shot him. Emily's chest tightened, but she kept her voice measured. Thank you both. That's very helpful. By the time the session ended, Emily had 4 more drawings, 2 audio statements recorded with permission, and a renewed sense of fire in her belly. These were children, untrained, unbiased. Their stories were consistent. Bear had protected, not attacked. That afternoon, Emily met Noah and Mark Delgado at a small downtown law office that looked more like a coffee shop than a legal fortress. Wood-paneled walls, a hand-lettered sign that read, "Justice is just another word for truth with a spine," and the smell of espresso drifting from a corner pot. Mark leaned against his desk, short and wide with silver-tipped hair and fingers that never stopped moving when he talked. He flipped through Emily's materials like a blackjack dealer. Kid's testimony is tricky, he said, but paired with this video and Keen's recorded threats. It's a weapon. Emily pulled out the final piece. There's more. She opened a small folder and placed one drawing in front of them, lilies. It had been done with soft pastels, the strokes careful and deliberate. Bear stood in the foreground, tense, his body shielding a small girl crouched behind him. The most chilling part was the dark figure behind them, hand extended, something metallic pointed forward. It wasn't photorealistic. But it felt real. The posture, the fear, the moment, frozen forever in Lily's small hands. Noah said nothing. He stared at it, jaw locked. Mark glanced between them. You ready to go public? Noah's voice was gravel. Yes. Later that evening, in the quiet of his living room, Noah watched Lily from a distance. She sat on the floor near the fireplace, sketchbook balanced on her knees, a fresh sheet half filled with lines. Her face was calmer than it had been in days. Her hair was damp from a recent bath, and she wore one of Bear's old tags around her neck like a pendant. Angela Pike, the neighbor who had taken to visiting daily, arrived with a small tray of cookies. She asked for art paper today, she whispered to Noah. That's a good sign. Angela was a widow, short and round with a floral apron that never came off, even when she wasn't baking. She spoke softly but carried herself like a woman who had seen the worst and still chose gentleness. I found her staring at the lake yesterday, Angela added. Didn't say a word. Just watched. Noah nodded, emotions caught somewhere between pride and heartbreak. She's not done grieving. She won't be, Angela replied. But she's starting to remember she's still allowed to feel joy. That night, Noah received an encrypted email from Emily. The subject line read, "Sent to Animal Welfare Legal Defense, confirmed." She had forwarded all the child statements, the drawings, the video footage, and her official affidavit. A reply had already come from Shannon Merrick, a senior investigator at the Animal Justice Legal Fund. Shannon was known in legal circles as a bulldog, sharp-suited, sharp-tongued, and tireless in high-profile animal abuse cases involving law enforcement. Emily read the final line of Shannon's email aloud to Noah over the phone. Based on preliminary review, this case may constitute a violation of state and federal statutes concerning misuse of force against a registered service animal. Prepare for follow-up. We're taking this one. Noah exhaled. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the town of Willow Ridge would never again be as quiet as it had been before that shot rang out. The courthouse in Ashton County stood like a relic of forgotten promises, its sandstone columns worn by time and wind, the American flag above it fluttering half-heartedly in the humid air. The inside smelled faintly of old paper, polished tile, and the kind of bureaucracy that turned pain into paperwork. It was a Thursday morning, and for Noah Carter, it might as well have been Judgment Day. He stood outside the courtroom with Mark Delgado, both of them dressed in quiet grays, their eyes distant but alert. Emily Brooks had joined them, wearing a navy dress and low heels, clutching a leather folder as if it were armor. Across the marble floor, Officer Travis Keene leaned against a wall, arms folded, whispering to a man in a gray suit with slick back hair and two white teeth, District Attorney Gerald Foltz. Foltz was known for his tough-on-crime reputation, though behind closed doors he was more politician than prosecutor. In his late 50s, with a weathered face that looked like it had been chiseled out of ambition, he had a gift for making truths disappear beneath legal jargon. At 10:04 a.m., the judge emerged. Judge Rachel Linwood, mid-60s, wore her black robe like a shroud of inevitability. Her hair, a stern braid of white and steel, was pulled so tight it looked like it hurt. Known for her strict adherence to procedure, she'd ruled over hundreds of cases without letting a single emotional plea bend her logic. The hearing lasted only 27 minutes. Foltz argued there was insufficient cause for civil action. Keene had acted within department guidelines in response to perceived imminent danger to a child. The department's internal review had closed the case. No charges. No violations. No fault. Bear's status as a registered support animal was not visible at the time of the incident. The children's drawings were deemed non-evidentiary. The video, inconclusive due to lack of full context. And with a sharp rap of her gavel, Judge Linwood dismissed the case. No trial. No jury. No headlines. Mark didn't speak. Emily stood frozen. Noah's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Not yet. They walked outside into the rising heat of late morning. The news vans that had promised coverage were nowhere to be found. A small group of supporters, 2 teachers, an off-duty nurse, and Angela Pike, waited near the steps. Angela handed Lily a daisy chain she had made from wildflowers. The little girl held it tightly, but her eyes were distant. Later that day, back home, Noah sat in his garage, alone. Dust hung in the shafts of light like suspended memories. Bear's leash still hung by the door. He hadn't moved it. Couldn't. Not yet. The silence was oppressive until he heard a soft knock. Lily. She peeked in through the half-open door, wearing her favorite red hoodie, the sleeves too long for her arms. Her hair was still damp from the bath Emily had coaxed her into that morning. She didn't speak right away, hadn't for weeks. But then, in the quiet of that dusky garage, she whispered, "Dad?" Noah turned, slowly. "Yeah, baby." She held up the newest drawing in her hand. It was Bear again, standing proud, like a guardian in armor, his chest out, his gaze forward. Behind him was a field of stars, not bullets. And beneath his paws, tiny words, written in crayon, "He didn't leave me. Don't leave him." Lily stepped closer and, for the first time since the shooting, wrapped her arms around her father's waist. "He doesn't deserve to be forgotten," she whispered. Noah knelt, arms around her, forehead against hers. "He won't be." That evening, Emily received a call she hadn't expected, from Carter Hayes, a regional journalist who ran a small but fiercely independent online news outlet called The Third Line. He was in his early 40s, African American, with a gravelly voice and a reputation for digging where bigger networks refused. "I heard what happened," he said. "No one's running the story because the department's leaning on them. But if you've got footage and first-hand accounts, I'll run it. No edits. No favors. Just truth." Emily looked across the kitchen at Noah, who stood by the sink, washing the coffee mugs Lily had painted for Bear months ago. She covered the phone. "He's in." Noah didn't hesitate. "Let's do it." That night, Carter Hayes sat in a motel room off Route 17, loading footage into his editing software. He watched Lily's drawing, Bear's bark caught on Emily's phone, the faces of children speaking the truth adults had buried. The last clip was of Keene himself, face twisted with rage, declaring, that mutt was just an excuse. Carter didn't add narration. He didn't need to. Truth had found its voice. And by morning, it would be online for the whole world to see. The video had been live for less than 12 hours when the first wave hit. It began as a quiet stir, a handful of shares on niche forums for animal rights advocates, small Facebook groups for veterans, and then, without warning, it surged. By the end of the day, the third-line server crashed under the weight of nearly 500,000 views. Carter Hayes, sleepless in his two-room office above a donut shop in downtown Fairhaven, watched in disbelief as his inbox filled with thousands of emails, veterans, dog handlers, parents, lawyers, students. People who had never met Bear, never seen Willow Ridge Park, now demanded justice for a dog they considered one of their own. Hashtags began to trend, hashtag justice for Bear, hashtag he saved her, hashtag Noah was right. Noah Carter sat at the kitchen table, bleary-eyed from a night of silence. His phone buzzed every 5 seconds. Emily Brooks had barely slept either, splitting her time between her small-town nursing job and managing the flood of press inquiries. Lily, now cautiously curious again, sat on the floor beside them, sketching a new drawing, this time, Bear sitting under a tree, surrounded by stars, each with a person's name. Somewhere in Kansas, a Vietnam veteran posted a video tribute. In Ohio, a police dog memorial group lit candles beneath a picture of Bear. By the end of the week, the noise grew loud enough that someone else, someone higher up, was forced to listen. 3 days later, a black SUV with federal plates pulled into the dusty driveway of the Carter home. Out stepped Special Agent Callie Monroe, mid-40s, sharp cheekboned and no-nonsense. She had a clipped bob of dark auburn hair and wore a navy suit that looked like it had never seen a wrinkle. Former military intelligence turned FBI internal affairs, she was known for her precision and her refusal to let politics get in the way of truth. "I'm not here for show," she said bluntly to Noah as they stood on his porch. "I've read the case files, seen the footage. I want your raw data, uncut, unedited, time-stamped. And I'll need access to your home security logs." Noah handed her the encrypted drive and nodded. "It's all yours." Callie worked fast. Within 48 hours, she'd filed a preliminary report suggesting serious inconsistencies in Officer Keen's past conduct. More damning was the discovery, uncovered through a digital sweep by FBI forensic analyst Daniel Chu, a quiet man in his 30s with wire-rimmed glasses and a coffee addiction, that Keen had accessed Noah's military discharge files 2 weeks before the incident at the park. The real blow came with the recovered internal police emails. One, dated April 7, read, "Carter's back in town. Eyes open. We know what that dog's really for." Another, more chilling, from Keen himself, "He thinks he's just some dad now. Let's see how fast a leash breaks under pressure." Callie brought the evidence to her superiors. Within 2 days, she received clearance to open an official investigation. Keen was placed on administrative leave. His gun and badge were taken. For the first time since Bear's death, Noah Carter felt the weight of injustice shift, slightly, but meaningfully. Meanwhile, the public pressure mounted. Emily coordinated with Cynthia Wells, the director of a nonprofit animal rescue coalition in Oregon, a silver-haired woman with a voice like silk and nerves of steel. Cynthia had spent decades fighting for abused working dogs and now launched an online petition demanding a federal review of police canine protocols. Within 72 hours, it surpassed 2 million signatures. A vigil was organized at Willow Ridge Park. Veterans came in uniform. Children brought stuffed animals. A boy who had never spoken in public read a poem to Bear. The mayor, reluctant but sensing a political shift, arrived late and left early. At the edge of the crowd, Lily stood holding a small candle. She wore Bear's old collar around her wrist like a bracelet. Her eyes didn't cry anymore, they searched, they burned. Emily knelt beside her. "You okay?" she asked gently. Lily nodded. "He's not gone." "Not really. I think he knew this would happen." Emily blinked back tears. "Maybe he did. Maybe that's why he didn't hesitate." The story was now national. News anchors debated it nightly. Editorials questioned departmental procedures. And in quiet corners of chat rooms and email chains, other victims began to speak up. A woman in Nevada shared a story of a service dog shot during a wellness check. A retired handler in Texas admitted his dog was retired early after biting an officer he'd previously reported for misconduct. Patterns emerged. And within the buzz, names kept repeating, Keene's among them. Noah, watching from the sidelines, was wary. "They'll try to bury this again," he told Emily one night, the moonlight pooling across their shared silence. "Once the noise fades." Emily looked at him with a steadiness she hadn't felt in years. "Then we keep it alive. As long as we have breath, we speak. As long as she gestured to Lily asleep with her drawings, has memory, we fight." The air was crisp on the morning of Keene's arrest. A thin mist rolled in from the lake, wrapping around Willow Ridge like a second skin. The same lake where Bear had barked, lunged, and saved. Where a bullet cracked the silence. Where grief had rooted itself in soil, and where, today, justice would begin to bloom. Special Agent Callie Monroe stood at the precinct steps with quiet authority. Her breath formed soft clouds in the cold morning as she watched Officer Travis Keene, now dressed in plain clothes, being led out in handcuffs. His face was unreadable, lips pressed tight, eyes flickering only once when he spotted the cluster of press, their cameras trained on him like a firing squad. Standing just behind them was Noah Carter. His shoulders were squared, jaw tight. Not in anger, but in honor. The kind of composure drilled into men who had once led teams through fire and chaos. His hand held Lily's. She clutched his palm tightly, eyes wide but steady. There were no tears, no cheers. Only a stillness. A kind of reverence. Inside the courtroom, Keene's indictment sent ripples across the town. Obstruction of justice. Unlawful use of lethal force. Intentional targeting. The judge, a stern older woman named Margaret Holloway, with crow's feet around her eyes and a reputation for zero tolerance, denied bail. The moment the gavel fell, Emily Brooks wept in silence in the back row. A week later, under the golden hues of late October, a memorial was unveiled at Willow Ridge. The town gathered once more. This time, it wasn't protests or tension. It was love, in its softest form. Wreaths were placed beside a newly planted tree, and beneath it, a simple stone carved with deliberate care. Bear, the four-legged hero who saved a little girl's life. Lily stepped forward, wearing a pale blue coat and mittens too big for her fingers. Her hair was braided gently, and in one hand she held a white flower. She laid it down at the foot of the stone and pressed her tiny palm against its cool surface. "He's still here," she whispered. Noah knelt beside her. "He always will be." Emily stood not far behind, her arms wrapped around herself, feeling the sun fall gently on her face. She thought of her own daughter, lost years ago, and felt, for the first time in a long while, that something had finally been returned to her. In the crowd was Cynthia Wells, the animal rights advocate, standing beside two officers from a canine rescue unit. Her organization had recently partnered with the town to implement new policies, trauma training, behavior review protocols, body cam mandates. Bear's legacy, written not in law, but in change. Later that month, Noah made a promise he had delayed for too long. The road leading to the Fairhaven Rescue Ranch was bumpy and flanked with dry brush. A large wooden sign swung gently in the breeze. It read, "Where every tale deserves a second chance." The building itself was humble, weather-worn but clean. Out front, a woman in her 50s named Joy Halstead greeted them. Joy had short gray curls, laugh lines carved deep into her face, and a voice like warm tea. She was the kind of person who remembered every animal story, and carried each one like a prayer. "You must be Lily," she smiled, kneeling down. "We've been waiting for you." Lily nodded shyly, her eyes scanning the wide yard beyond the fence. Inside, dozens of dogs barked, wagged, or slept peacefully in their kennels. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," Joy said. She led them toward a quiet pen off to the side. Inside stood a large German shepherd, tall, lean, and weathered. His fur was a mix of silver and dark tan. One eye was cloudy and pale, the other deep amber. A scar trailed down his side. Yet despite the worn body, there was a stillness in him. A silent dignity. "He's about 4, Joy explained softly. "Came from a rough case down south. Abandoned, then found guarding a burned-down shed for days. We call him Echo." Echo looked at Lily. He didn't rush. He didn't bark. He simply stepped forward, lowered his head, and nuzzled gently against her glove. Noah's breath caught. Lily giggled, a sound that had vanished from her for weeks. She reached out, fingers trembling, and touched his ear. "Hi, Echo," she whispered. "You feel like someone I already know." Joy smiled. Funny thing about grief. Sometimes it finds a way back to us, just with a different tale. Noah crouched beside her, brushing a hand down Echo's back. "You ready to go home, buddy?" Echo didn't move, but his tail gave the smallest, hopeful wag. That night, as the sky turned dusky lavender, the Carter house felt different. Lily curled up on the couch, Echo at her feet, his head resting on the worn fabric like he'd always belonged. In the corner sat Bear's old collar, now hung on a photo frame with the words, "Thank you for showing us love without fear." Emily visited that evening, bringing a pie and a gentle smile. As she sipped tea with Noah in the kitchen, she looked through the doorway and saw Lily talking to Echo like he was a friend she'd known forever. "She named him Echo?" Emily asked. Noah nodded. She said, "He carries Bear's voice with him." Sometimes, the greatest miracles don't arrive with thunder or light, they come in fur and scars, in the quiet return of a child's laughter, or in the way a broken soul finds healing through an unexpected friend. Bear may be gone, but through Echo, we're reminded that what is good, pure, and brave never truly leaves us, it echoes forward, in love, in memory, and in faith. Maybe this story touched something inside you. Maybe you, too, have loved and lost. Maybe you've met a kind of grace in the most unexpected places. That, dear friend, is no coincidence, it might just be God's way of reminding us He works through all creatures, even the four-legged ones. So if this story moved you, please help it reach more hearts. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who still believes in the quiet power of goodness. Leave a comment below and tell us, has a dog ever changed your life? And if you believe, like we do, that Bear's soul still walks beside those he loved, type Amen in the comments, and may God bless you for every tear, every smile, and every echo you carry forward.